sisters. Welcome to the OahspeCollegeUniversity College University. In my previous video titled Upcoming Videos, I promised to put up a video about DNA angels, which I've just done. And if you have not watched that video, I encourage you to go watch it. Topic of discussion today is Extinction of Humans. For years, I've been wanting to put this video up, but things just kept on coming up, and based on inspiration, I decided not to put it. And finally, I've been inspired to put it. Just like animals go to extinct, we humans, we also become extinct. And the question is that which of the spiritual book that we have out there today brings this information or talks about this information? Now, if we as humans see animals becoming extinct where they cannot procreate anymore and they die off of the planet, right? So it will make logical sense that we humans at one point eventually will be unable to procreate, will be unable to create offsprings. But the question is, what is the timeline? When does that happen? And I've read spiritual books and stuff, and the popular one that most people read today is the Christian Bible. And unfortunately, the Christian Bible doesn't give you that information. The information does not exist in the Christian Bible. Nothing. Luckily for us, in the current era, we're in the year 2020, and the OahspeCollegeUniversity was published in the year 1882. And the OahspeCollegeUniversity, it gives a clear description of when we humans are going to become extinct. And I know for a fact there will be a debate about this. People will disagree. They'll say no. But I have to tell you that the angels who make way for this OahspeCollegeUniversity to become available to our world are advanced angels. And these are angels who have passed through first resurrection heaven, and they passed through our world also, and rise in first resurrection, and also went to second resurrection heaven, where they had the opportunity to launch this book, but they had to use human to do it, and they used John Newber, which a lot of people are not familiar about this man. He had the gifts. So like I said, animals are gonna become extinct. Some animals, we see them, they're already extinct already. So we humans are gonna become extinct. So I'm gonna go to the OahspeCollegeUniversity and explain this in full details. Here we go. The book of Jeremiah, chapter 4, verse 6. The book of Jeremiah, chapter 4, verse 6 to 7. Verse 6. Things that man sees, I created with a beginning and end. You see that? So we can see humans. I see humans every day. So the creator is telling us here in verse 6 that, he created a beginning and an end. But the unseen, I made an endless duration. That's heaven. Verse 7, I made the corporeal corporeal man, that's we humans, belonging to the same. But the spiritual man, that's, when we died, our spiritual body, I made as one within the unseen and everlasting. You see? So humans have a beginning and an end. Now, when you go to the first book of the first Lord, chapter 2, verse 1, it talks about the Adamites, the Aswans, which the Christian Bible call Adam, the race of Adam. But in the Christian Bible, they classify it as just one person. But that's not true. There's a race of humans. They were called the Adamites. But OahspeCollegeUniversity decode them as Aswans. So in the first book of the first Lord, chapter 2, verse 1, it says, at the time of habitation of Asu was 8,000 years. You see? It talks about how they started. And they survived 2,000 years after the time of birth of the irons. You see? So they're telling you that the race of Adam started for 8,000 years and they survived 2,000 years after the time of the Irons. The Irons was a new race that came about when the angels, the host of angels, the host of centaurs came to have sex with a group of humans called Aswans. So to read on, and they survived 2,000 years after the time of birth of the Irons, which to say, Asu dwell on earth 6,000 years, and then conceive of the chosen of God after they survived 2,000 years. You see, so Oahspe is giving you a description that there were a race of human called the Adamites. They are swans that lived for a period of 8,000. They started 8,000 years and then they survived 2,000 years. And they're giving you the full description, saying that they dwell 6,000 for 6,000 years on our world. And then in the upcoming right after the next chapter, I'm going to give you a breakdown of all the summary. And then it says they conceived of the chosen of God. Why did they say that? That's because Centaurs was the first god of our world. And when he came down, he came with a host of angels. Some of those angels had sex with the Adamites. And Oahspe is telling you here that the Aswans survived for 2,000 years more. After the Irons will be an equivalent of the group of people called Abel. The Christian Bible described them as Abel. But again, the Christian Bible say Abel was just one person, but it's a group of people. Now, to show you that the race of humans that started off also go to extinct, I'm going to go to the book of Torah, chapter 1, verse 18 to 19. And in the book of Torah, chapter 1, verse 18 to 19, it talks about how when the iron become extinct also. So when a race come about, they also have a time of termination when they're going to die off completely. Where that means that they cannot continue off. So they die off. You see, just like animals die off, you get this host of races, human races that die off. If you don't watch my video about ancient aliens, you should go watch it. In that video, I give a description of the races of humans with a picture of it. So the book of Torah, chapter 1, verse 18 to 19. Verse 18. Yet I inquired about the races of men on earth. You see that? And as to the times of their extermination, you see? So this angel here is asking about the races of men, and he's asking at the time of termination, which means when they're going to die. Before I move further, I just want to say, if you go to a temple, a place of worship, and they don't talk about extinctions, you should be careful about that place of worship, because they should talk about it. You should be able to talk about it freely, that humans are going to die off, and they're going to come a time that humans cannot conceive offsprings anymore. It's just logical sense. We see this happen to other animals, so why not to humans? To read on, verse 19, God said, in 12,400 years, the iron race, the mold builders, will come to an end. And at that time, the Gans, see, that's another race. Remember, in verse 18, it's asking the races of men. So they're telling us here that the irons will become extinct from the time of Thor, 12,000 years, 400 years. And then at that time, the Gans will triumph over all the lands and water of the earth. So the Gans will move on. That's another race now. You see? So let's come up to a summary right after this. Then I will go to what does Oahspe say about the human extinction, the timeline. Now we already have a timeline of the Aswans already. And now we're going to get to the timeline, and now we're going to break down, we're going to go to mathematics here, So now, according to the Oahspe, right, the Casman cycle started 1848. Now, the time of Thor, this book of Thor, chapter 1, verse 18 to 19, came during the time of Thor. That would be 15,400 years before Casman. Casman was 1848. So the tall circle was the 20th arc circle, right? So let's do the mathematics here. An average circle is 3,000 years. So this is very easy. All you got to do is take 12,400, right? Because verse 19 says 12,400 years. So you just divide it by 3,000, you get 4 cycles. So you could break it down immediately, right? So that's to tell you 15,400 minus 12,400, that's 3,000 years ago. Starting from 1848, if you count backward, they become extinct 3,000 years from the year 1848. Very simple. So if you were to even do the math to start from during the time of Thor, which was the 20th arc circle. Now, when you're trying to get an understanding of these arc circles, average of 3,000 years, go watch my video 24 elders. In that video, I talk about during the time of each cycle that each of this Ethereum god came to rule us. So I give a breakdown of that. So you can watch that video and get a clear understanding of arc circles. Though in the future, I'll talk about it, but 24 elders give you a breakdown. So if you're to look at doing it, so Thor ruled us for 3,200 years, right? And that was the 20th arc circle. Right after that was Osiris, which was the 21st cycle, and he ruled for 3,300 years. So you add 3,200 plus 3,300 years, you get 6,500 years. Right there, 6,500 years. And then right after that was the time of Phagapati, and that's the 22nd arc circle. And Phagapati ruled us for 3,100 years. So you add 3,100 years plus 6,500, you get 9,600 years. Now, after Phagapati was Simta Amaj, the 23rd arc circle, and she ruled us for 2,400 years. So you add 2,400 years to 9,600 years, you get 12,000. Now remember, in verse 19, the book of Torah, chapter 1, verse 18 to 19, it says the iron race will come to an end in 12,400 years. So we already know that at the end of Simta Amaz's rule during the 23rd arc circle, that's 12,000 years, right? So let's recap for a minute. Thor ruled for 3,200 years, Osiris ruled for 3,300 years, Phagapati ruled for 3,100 years, Simta Amaj ruled for 2,400 years. That's a total of 12,000 years. Now we need to come up with the remaining of the 400 years. So that 400 years actually come during the time of Lika. And Lika was a Nivanian chief who ruled us for another period of time. Now this will make sense, because if you now put that 400 years to the 1200 years, the timeline will come to 1152 BC. That's when the iron become extinct. Now it will make sense. So it will make sense, because in order for you to bring up a prophet or seer during the time of Lika was when they brought about Moses, Chinya, and Capelia. So you need a little bit of the iron blood. You need the iron DNA in order for you to bring forth this prophet. So it will make sense that during the 24th arc cycle, Lika, they said that the iron will become extinct. So they become extinct 1152 BC. Because you add 400 years that was remaining from the 12,000 years, that was during the time of that will fall during the time of Lika. You see what I'm saying? So because Lika started in 1553 BC all the way down. Like I said, you got to go watch the 24 elders. So let's do a recap here. Now that we get a clear understanding. So the iron become extinct 1152 BC. That was, and in order for Moses and Chinya and Capelia to come about, they needed the iron blood, the iron DNA. And if you've not watched my video about DNA angels, you should go watch it, because in there it talks about this DNA angels. They go about to certain family, and they help with the procreation of humans. So now let's recap, right? So if you take 15,400 minus 12,400, you get 3,000 years counting from the 1848, that's when the iron become extinct. No, let me tell you, you go to the Christian Bible, you will never get any timeline about the races of human. But the OahspeC, according to the OahspeC right now, they're giving you the timeline. So the race of Asu, known as the Adamite, they first sprang 79,000 years ago, right? Counting from the year 1488. And then the race of iron, known as Abel, they came about 78,000 years ago. You see that? Now, if you're to look at the humans, no, we're going to go to that book where humans give us, where OahspeC gives us a clear description of how many more years that we humans are going to become extinct. But I just want to summarize the other races of humans. So the race of Asu, 79,000 years ago, that's when they came about. The race of iron, they came about 78,000 years ago. And then sanctity was crowned God of heaven and earth 73,569 years ago to kick off the Ark of One, which was the first Ark cycle, right? The Aswans first lived in our world 78,000 years ago, and they died off 70,000 years ago. The irons that came about, which is the main DNA that we need in order for us to continue this race, they came between 72,000 to 73,000 years ago as a result of angelic and the Adamic union. And Adamites, or the Aswans, which the people of Adam, those are the Adamite. Now, so let's recap here. So Asu were 78,000 years before Kazman. The Irons were 72,000 years before Kazman. Druk, which is another race of human, they were 71,000 years before Kazman. The Yuan, 70 years before Kazman. You got the Gan, 14,000 years before Kazman. And there was another race called the Mongrel, which came 8,000 years before Kazman. So if you were to do just a basic math to find out the timeline when the Aswans actually become extinct, all you have to do is just take the year 1848 and just minus it, from 71,000 years, and you get 69,153 BCE. That's when the Asu become extinct. Now, for the iron, like I said again, just looking at the book of Torah, you just need to add the math. This is, pure mathematics. The Christian Bible don't have this, and you'll never get it in the Christian Bible. So, and then the 1848, just minus it from 3,000, you get 1152 BC. That's when the iron become extinct. Now, the question now is, when do we humans, according to the OahspeC Bible, become extinct? You see? Now I'm going to go and I'm going to reveal to you the book of Cosmogony and Prophecy, chapter 5, verses 19 to 21. The book of Cosmogony and Prophecy, chapter 5, verse 19 to 21. Verse 19. To find this one age of man, right? That's when humans started coming forth. Places temperature at 98 degrees for optimum health, and 102 at inflammation or death. 4 below normal, therefore, will be the end of period of man in the habitation of earth. You see that? So verse 19 is telling you, as soon as the rotation planetary temperature falls below 4 below the normal temperature of the inhabitant, that's when the human will become extinct. So that's 94 degrees. So you see that out in the verse 19 says, after the rotation radiation reaches its period, 94 degrees. So man will cease to propagate. You see? So already, like in the book of Torah, chapter 1, verse 19, OahspeC already tell you when iron will stop to propagate. Irons will stop to iron becomes extinct. So iron cannot have sex with another race because it's not gonna give back. So it can't give back anymore. And that was as far as like 3,000 years, counting all the way from counting from the year 1848. You see, the iron become extinct around that time. So OahspeC gives you timelines on when all these things come about. So now verse 20. Now, this is where I'm going. Verse 20, I'm reading from the book of Cosmog and Prophecy, chapter 5, verse 19 to 21. So, Oasis tells you 94 degrees is when we humans will cease to propagate. You see that? We'll become extinct. 94 degrees. But how do you get that 94? How do you calculate the 94 degrees? So, yeah, verse 20 gives you the correct description. It says, verse 20, this gives man 8 degrees of rotation as the sum of his existence. You see? So they're telling you 8 degrees starting from the time of when Asu / the Irons came about. You see that? Around that time will be 98 degrees. Like I said again, go watch my video about 24 elders. In there I put up the chart, and also I'm putting up the chart here on this video. But I'm only putting on the chart when we count 24,000 years from the 94 degrees starting from the year 1848. So yeah, verse 20 is clearly telling you that this gives man 8 degrees of rotation as the sum of his existence. 1 degree is equivalent. Man, these angels are powerful. I mean, for them to get these numbers, I mean, they had to look at the sun, the moon. Wow. 1 degree is equivalent to 12,772,000 radian Seaform Goom. You see that? The serpent coil will be 1/4. That is 20. Here it is now. That is 24,000 years to the time of completion. You see that? Let's read this verse 20 again. A lot of people who read the OahspeCollegeUniversity probably skip this part, or they don't look at it, or they look at it and they say, yeah, whatever. But this is clearly telling you, verse 20 is clearly telling you when humans are going to become extinct. It tells you right there, in 24,000 years. Let me read it again. This gives, verse 20, this gives man 8 degree of rotation as the sum of his extinction. 1 degree is equivalent to 12,706,000 radio Sinfonku. The serpent coil. You gotta, when there are some pictures in the OahspeCollegeUniversity that shows you how our planet is moving. It's moving in form of a serpent coil. It's moving in form of a serpent. So yeah, OahspeCollegeUniversity, these angels who channel this information is telling you that the serpent coil would have been 1/4. That is 24,000 years to the time of completion. Thus, 12,760,000 years divided by 260,000 had 1,402 and a half, had 24,000 times 3 gives you 76,750 years at the time of Simon age. This verse 20 is powerful. This verse 20 is beautiful, amazing. The angels actually even told you the time that the first human race came about. It's even telling you that the time of the Simon age, that's the time when humans started coming about. You see that? And to finish it, it says, to this should be added 1 circus, to say 3,000 years, which was the beginning of the fall of the Semo. Oh, this verse 20 is powerful. Now, to add it, verse 21 says, by reversing this measurement. You see that? The angels are even reversing the measurement so that you could get calculation of when the first human came about and when the race of humans are going to become extinct. This is beautiful. Verse 21, by reversing this measurement to find the ancient decrease of the earth in 78,000 years, which would be just 100 minus or 3/34 of a second annually, which is the earth's declining speed. You see that? So what this is saying is that every 24,000 years, I did that calculation too. Every 24,000 years, the earth's declining speed, so it's reducing the radiation is coming down. For which reason the first of the race of man on earth began about 78,000 years before Cosman. I have to say, so Olapsi here is clearly telling you that we humans will become extinct 24,000 years from the year 1848. All you got to do is count from the year 1848, add 24,000 years to that. You could do the math. Olapsi is not sugarcoating here. Clearly tells you from the book of Cosmogony and Prophecy, chapter 5, verse 19 to 21, when we humans become extinct. Brothers and sisters, here you have it. And in my chart, I just did a breakdown of this, using the 98 degrees from verse 19, right? In the book of Cosmogony, chapter 5, verse 19 to 21, I just did a breakdown, and the ghetto radiation rate, the ghetto radiation during that time, Voltesian rate radiation reduces. So every 24,000 years, it moves. So and you could clearly see on my chart the extinction of humans 24,000 years from during the time of Cosman. It tells you right there, that's the timeline right there, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist. And the funny thing is that you see I have the 1553 BC. That's when Lika came about, and around that time between 1553 BC to 1848 was when you already know the iron become extinct 1152 BCE. And in order to continue procreating, in order for that DNA blood to pick up the prophets, the seers, they needed the iron blood. The iron DNA was needed. After 1152 BC, the irons were no longer needed, because the angels already see that we already got enough of the DNA in order to continue. You see, brothers and sisters, it doesn't take a rocket scientist. You could do the math from the Olapsi. You got the verses, and it clearly tells you when humans will become extinct right there. And I'll be waiting for those Christian brothers and sisters to challenge this. I'll be waiting for anyone, any spiritual brother, to challenge and say this information is not true. The timeline is right there. Olapsi clearly tells you in 24,000 years from now, we humans will become extinct. We will die off, and we will no longer be able to procreate. Some people might say, oh, that's not true. I want you to challenge this verse in Olapsi. I'm open-minded. I want somebody to come and challenge this and say, I don't think so. Yeah. But funny enough, Olapsi gives you a timeline of when the other races of human become extinct. You see? And using that timeline, you can actually calculate. I only put in the math to show you when the irons become extinct. The math is right there. Olapsi just shows you the information. All you have to do is put in the math. You don't have to be a rocket scientist. That's it. Light and peace, brothers and sisters. Bye-bye now.